Dad lifted his crystal glass, the chandelier light catching the bubbles. To Rachel's future and to the family fund that made her dream home possible. Applause, laughter, champagne clinking. Rachel glowed in her burgundy dress, showing photos of granite counters and rooftop gardens. My pulse thundered. 10 years of skipped vacations, bus rides, and secondhand furniture flashed behind my eyes. I set my glass down, the stem trembling against porcelain. That was my money. The room froze, Rachel's smirk, Mom's pearls, Dad's stiff jaw. I stood up and walked out, leaving their celebration cracked open in silence. The night air clung to my blouse as I walked out of that dining room, but inside me, something else was suffocating 10 years of being the responsible one. My footsteps echoed down the driveway, but every echo pulled me further into memory, into the long history of how I became the silent foundation of a family that never once turned back to see what I was carrying. My name is Michelle Robinson. Today I want to share this story as a liberation for the soul. It wasn't always like this. At 22, I was naive enough to believe my parents when they said the family trust was for my future. Dad had spread papers across the oak table, the smell of his cigar still in the air, Mom wearing her pearls like armor. We'll manage it. You add what you can. One day, it'll help you buy your home or start a family. I remember signing my name Heart, swollen with hope. I believed them because I wanted to. Every month after that, like clockwork, I moved $500 from my paycheck into that account. It meant ramen dinners and nights grading papers under a flickering bulb because I couldn't afford to replace it. It meant saying no when friends planned weekend trips. It meant walking past boutiques and learning to smile at clothes through glass instead of touching them. I told myself each sacrifice was an investment in a future where I would finally belong, where I'd finally be seen. Rachel's life was a different film playing on the same screen. She got a shiny new car at graduation, a bow bigger than my monthly rent tied across the hood. When she spent 3 years finding herself, Mom called it courageous. When I worked 60-hour weeks to keep myself afloat, it was just expected. Dad sent her on a European summer, calling it an educational investment. When I asked once about taking a trip to the coast, he looked over his glasses and said, "Is that wise, Michelle? Shouldn't you be saving?" The house itself was full of small betrayals, the kind that don't make headlines but carve valleys in your chest. The cracked photo frame I fixed with glue, no one thanked me for. The antique clock I paid to repair that everyone praised as if it had healed itself. The graduation photos, Rachel's smile, wide and golden mine, half formed like I wasn't sure whether I belonged in the picture. And yet I kept believing. I built my life around responsibility because responsibility was the only role left open. I rented the cheapest apartment I could find with pipes that groaned every winter. I rode the bus in rainstorms, clutching lesson plans, while Rachel sped past in her gifted car. I graded essays late into the night, knowing that $500 of my sweat and hours would disappear into that family trust the next morning. Still, I dreamed. A small cottage with peeling paint, but sunlight pouring through the windows. A secondhand sofa I actually chose. A garden patch where I could grow something alive. That was what I thought I was saving for, not a mansion. Not luxury, just a place where my name finally meant ownership. What I didn't see was the pattern repeating itself. My father learned to disguise control as family duty, my mother learned to call favoritism practicality, and Rachel learned to accept gifts without shame. And I learned to keep quiet, to swallow my hunger for fairness, to let responsibility wrap around me like chains. So when Dad raised that glass tonight and said, "To Rachel's future with my money in his champagne," every sacrifice I had ever made reassembled in my chest, like a puzzle I couldn't ignore anymore. 10 years of self-denial had been rewritten as Rachel's triumph. My foundation had been stolen to build her dream house. I thought of the little girl I used to be, the one who woke at dawn to make pancakes for Dad on Sundays, hoping he'd smile. I thought of the 22-year-old me signing that form with hope glittering in her eyes. I thought of every silent dinner where I nodded and smiled while Rachel's victories were celebrated and my endurance was ignored. And for the first time, I let myself feel the truth. This wasn't about money. It was about worth, about being invisible in my own family, about realizing the title of responsible one was never respect, it was exploitation. That night, as I drove away, the autumn leaves flared under the street lamps, amber like fire. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than I'd ever held anything. I knew I couldn't go back to pretending. The trust was broken, not just the financial one, but the only fragile trust I had left in them. The bathroom light hummed faintly as I locked the door behind me, the soft click echoing louder than the champagne glasses outside. I pressed my back against the wood, breath-shallow palms clammy. My phone screen glowed like a warning. I opened my banking app with fingers that felt numb. One line stopped my world. Previous balance $59, 872.43. Current balance $0. The words didn't shout, they whispered like a betrayal too familiar to surprise me. 10 years of bus rides, skipped vacations, secondhand clothes reduced to a neat row of digits, followed by nothing. I scrolled down searching for an explanation, but the last transaction burned itself into my vision. Transfer to external account. Yesterday. No message, no permission, no warning, just absence. My grip tightened around the phone until my knuckles paled. My reflection in the mirror stared back at me. Cream blouse wrinkled from sitting lipstick, faded. For years, I'd told myself being dependable meant being valuable. Yet here I was, empty account, empty glass, empty recognition. Through the door, I could still hear them. Rachel's voice laced with triumph as she described paint swatches, Mom's delighted hum, Dad's steady rumble. Their celebration swelled like music from another life, one I'd been funding without an invitation. I braced my hands against the porcelain sink, cool and unyielding, grounding me in a way my family never had. The tiles beneath my heels felt like ice. $60,000. I whispered into the silence. Saying it aloud made it real 60,000 stolen minutes of my life. A memory flickered, age 26, refusing a colleague's offer to backpack through Italy because $500 had to go to the fund. Another 29 sitting in my freezing apartment layering socks because I couldn't afford to fix the heat. All while Rachel posted photos of summer sunsets in Barcelona, smiling behind sunglasses I later recognized from Mom's closet. It wasn't just money, it was choice. My choices erased, rewritten as Rachel's luxury. I unlocked the door. The hinges groaned as if reluctant to let me back into that world. 3 pairs of eyes turned to me, Rachel glowing, Mom beaming, Dad stoic. Their champagne still sparkled under the chandelier. That was my money. My voice didn't crack. It sliced. Mom gave a brittle laugh. Oh, sweetheart, it's a family fund. We've always made decisions together. Decisions I asked, stepping closer. Who decided to empty 10 years of my savings? Rachel rolled her eyes dramatically. Don't be so dramatic, Michelle. It's not like you were using it. Dad set his glass down with deliberate precision. Calm down. Your sister needs this house. It's about the greater good of the family. The greater good? My voice trembled, but it was anger now, not fear. I held out my hand. Show me the account statements. Dad's jaw tightened. Now isn't the time. Show me. Each word landed heavy, unshakable. A silence fell, the kind that tasted like iron. Finally, Dad pushed his chair back and left the room. Mom's hand fluttered toward mine, but I pulled away. Michelle, be reasonable. Rachel has found her perfect home. You'll have your turn. Rachel smirked. You can even stay in the guest room when you visit. The generosity stung more than the theft, offering me a room in a house built with my sacrifices. When Dad returned, he carried a leather portfolio. He placed it on the table like evidence at a trial. I flipped it open, scanning rows of numbers that screamed my name month after month. Deposit, 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 mine, all mine, and then withdrawals. What's this? 20,000 August 2022. Rachel's cheeks flushed. Graduate school, Mom said smoothly. A small loan. And this $12,000, Dad cleared his throat. Her car. She needed reliable transportation. I kept turning pages. The European vacation. No answer. Only silence that confirmed what I already knew. Finally, I closed the portfolio. Not $1 from either of you. Not one. Dad leaned forward, voice rising. We provided guidance, strategy. That's worth more than money. I gathered the papers, sliding them into my bag. Guidance doesn't pay rent. Guidance doesn't freeze in an apartment winter. Guidance doesn't give me back 10 years. Mom's eyes glistened. After everything we've done for you, what exactly have you done? The words spilled out, not sharp, but tired. The chandelier hummed. Rachel scoffed. Dad's face hardened. But for once I didn't shrink. I picked up my purse, the portfolio heavy against my side. Where are you going? Mom asked. Home, I said. My home. Whatever that means now. Dad's voice followed me to the door, heavy with authority. The decision has been made. Yes, I replied, opening the door. But not by you. The click of the door behind me sounded like a verdict. That night, I spread the portfolio across my coffee table, the papers glowing under the weak light of my secondhand lamp. Rows of deposits, every one mine, stared back like a timeline of invisible sacrifices. Beside them, withdrawals that spelled Rachel's privileges in black and white. Graduate school, car, vacation, house. My life siphoned off into hers. My phone buzzed relentlessly, calls from Mom, texts from Dad, a voicemail from Rachel that started with, "You're embarrassing yourself," and ended with, "Just move on." I let them pile up like static. For once, silence felt like power. The next morning, I called Sarah. She'd been my closest friend since college, the one person who'd seen me through late-night cram sessions and heartbreaks. She arrived at my apartment that evening carrying a bottle of cheap red wine and a folder bulging with documents. "You sounded awful on the phone," she said, setting the wine down and flipping open the folder. "So I did some digging." I raised an eyebrow. "Digging? You said it was a joint account, but all the deposits are yours, right?" I nodded. She pulled out a printout of state statutes highlighted in neon yellow. Joint account doesn't mean communal funds. If there's a paper trail proving you're the only contributor and they withdrew without your consent, it's misappropriation, possibly fraud. Fraud. The word tasted sharp. I'd been calling it betrayal, but hearing it in legal terms made it heavier, more real. "They're my parents," I whispered, as if that excused anything. Sarah poured us each a glass of wine, "And they stole from you. Blood doesn't make theft less criminal." Her certainty steadied me. She slid a business card across the table. "Thomas Wilson, Financial Disputes, Westbrook and Associates. He's fair, old school but sharp. He won't let them twist this." I stared at the card, the embossed letters catching the light. My father's voice rang in my head. "The Robinson family handles matters privately, but privacy had cost me $60,000. Maybe exposure was the only protection left." The following afternoon, I sat across from Thomas Wilson in an office that smelled faintly of leather and dust. Silver-haired glasses perched low on his nose, he reminded me of my grandfather's kind eyes that sharpened when they landed on injustice. "This isn't a trust," he said, thumbing through my statements. "This is a joint account with one contributor. You." He looked up. "Legally, it's your money, every cent." I pressed my palms against my knees to stop them from shaking. "What are my options?" "Certified letters first," he said. "One to the bank disputing the withdrawal. One to your parents outlining your claim. If they refuse, we escalate. Civil suit. Possibly criminal. Against my parents. Against Rachel." The idea twisted my stomach. Thomas's gaze softened. "Justice isn't about destruction. It's about balance. You've been carrying weight alone for too long." I signed the letters. My signature looked bolder than I felt. When I got home, my phone lit up with Rachel's latest Instagram post. A photo of her and her fiancé outside the Oakwood Heights sales office, a giant sold sign behind them, keys dangling from her manicured fingers. The caption, "Dreams come true when you have a supportive family. Blessed new homeowner, supportive family." My jaw tightened. I stared at the blinking cursor under the photo, the comment box daring me. Then I typed, "Congratulations on spending my $60,000. May the walls hold as steady as my sacrifices did." I hit post before I could second-guess myself. Notifications exploded within minutes. Rachel's friends were confused, relatives, horrified, strangers intrigued. For the first time, the truth wasn't locked behind our dining room walls. Later that night, my phone rang with an Arizona area code. Michelle. The voice was low-weathered by time and distance. "It's Aunt Meredith." My breath caught. My father's estranged sister hadn't spoken to me in years. "How did you?" Sarah called. "She told me everything." Meredith exhaled. "They did this to me too. After Grandma passed, she left me her jewelry in the will. Your father convinced me to let it stay in the family line. I thought I was doing the right thing. I never saw those pieces again." I sank onto the couch, clutching the phone. "I didn't know." "Of course you didn't. They build silence like walls. But those walls are cracks now, Michelle. Don't let them do to you what they did to me." Her words settled in my chest like seeds. For the first time in years, I didn't feel alone in my anger. As I hung up, I looked at the stack of documents, the certified letters waiting to be mailed, the glowing comments still stirring chaos online. My family thought they had buried me under silence and obligation. But silence can be shattered. An obligation cuts both ways. This time, I wouldn't retreat. This time, I would let the truth grow roots. The first sign that my silence had been broken came the next morning. My phone vibrated itself off the counter with a string of messages. "Mom, Michelle, call me. You don't understand how much damage you're doing." "Dad, your behavior is childish. You're jeopardizing the family's reputation." "Rachel, wow. You had to humiliate me on Instagram. Congrats, you finally got attention." I didn't respond. I let the phone go dark, the buzzing die out. But their words seeped into the quiet like mold: family reputation, childish humiliation. The same tools they'd always used: guilt, dismissal, shame. 2 nights later, the ambush arrived. Uncle Frank invited me to dinner, promising neutral ground. I should have known better. The dining room smelled of pot roast, but the air carried tension instead of comfort. Around the table sat not only Frank, but also Aunt Linda, 2 cousins, and of course my parents and Rachel. Frank leaned forward, voice heavy with authority. "Your mother hasn't slept since those letters arrived, Michelle. You're breaking her heart." I folded my napkin calmly. "She broke mine first." William, my cousin, who still boasted about his college quarterback days 20 years later, sneered. "Rachel has big dreams. You're just a teacher." The word just hit harder than intended. Just a teacher, the same just... I heard whenever I tried to explain why I stayed in this district, why I invested in children no one else believed in. My jaw tightened. I help kids believe in their futures. Last month, I paid for 3 students' college application fees out of my own pocket. Tell me again what's just about that. The room fell uncomfortably quiet. Aunt Linda reached for the potatoes as if distraction could erase my words. Rachel finally spoke, her voice shrill. "This is humiliating. Everyone at Oakwood Heights already knows about the house. Jason and I have picked out furniture. What am I supposed to tell them, that my sister stole it back?" I almost laughed at the irony, me stealing it back. Instead, I said evenly, "Tell them the truth. You built a dream on money that wasn't yours." Mom's eyes welled. "Michelle, we just wanted Rachel to have a strong start. You've always been capable, independent. Translation, I asked. I didn't need help, so you gave all the help to her. Except I did need it. I just stopped asking because the answer was always no." Dad slammed his fork down the sound like a gavel. "Enough. We are family. We do not air our laundry in public." "Then you shouldn't have stolen my wardrobe," I shot back, surprising myself with the bite in my voice. The tension snapped. Chairs scraped back. Voices rose. Cousins muttered about loyalty. Mom begged for peace. Rachel accused me of jealousy. I sat still, letting their chaos swirl. For once, I wasn't the one smoothing things over. I was the storm's eye, calm, steady, untouchable. When my phone buzzed again, I excused myself to the kitchen. A new Instagram notification. Rachel had posted a photo, her left hand flashing a diamond ring, Jason's arm wrapped around her waist in front of that same sold sign. The caption, she said yes, engaged and new home life couldn't be better. New chapter, Saturn family first. My thumb hovered, my heart hammered. I typed, "Congratulations. I hope your new home brings you as much joy as my 10 years of savings did." Then I hit send. Within minutes, comments exploded. Some congratulated, others questioned. My message stood there, unignorable like a crack in Rachel's perfect facade. Back in the dining room, I slipped my phone into my purse. Their voices droned on, but my thoughts drifted to my classroom. The bright drawings taped to the walls, the stick figure one of my students had drawn of me standing tall with the words, "Miss Robinson taught me to be brave." I breathed in that memory, let it steady me. For years, I'd told children to stand up for themselves. Now it was my turn to model it. When I returned to the table, Dad glared. "Your defiance is tearing this family apart." "No," I said, settling back into my chair. "It was already broken. I'm just refusing to keep patching it with my silence." No one knew what to say to that. The pot roast cooled untouched. The air grew heavy. For once, they had no script. I left without dessert. My car's headlights cut through the dark, illuminating the road ahead. The storm had begun, yes, but for the first time, I wasn't afraid of the thunder. The conference room smelled faintly of polish and power. Dark wood table leather chairs, blinds drawn against the afternoon sun. I sat on one side, Thomas Wilson, steady beside me, his silver hair catching the light. Across from us, my parents stiff and unsmiling, and Rachel scrolling her phone as though granite countertops might still save her. Thomas opened a folder and spread out the bank statements like evidence in a trial. These records show 10 years of deposits, every one from Michelle. Not a single contribution from Robert or Ellen Robinson. Dad's jaw clenched. "We managed the account. That was our role," mismanaged Thomas corrected, calm but cutting, especially given the unauthorized withdrawals. Vacations, car payments, tuition, all without Michelle's consent. Rachel's head snapped up, color draining from her cheeks. "You promised me that house," she shouted at our parents, voice cracking. "You said the money was mine." Mom hushed her, reaching for her hand, but Rachel pulled away. "Everyone knows, Mom. I already posted about it. What am I supposed to do now?" "Tell Jason we can't afford the house because my sister decided to ruin everything." I leaned forward, voice low but steady. "Tell him the truth. It wasn't yours to begin with." Dad slammed his palm against the table, the sound reverberating. "We are family. How dare you drag us in front of a lawyer after everything we've done for you?" "What have you done?" The words left my mouth before I could temper them. A car for Rachel at graduation while I took the bus, tuition for her master's degree while I worked 2 jobs, a trip to Europe for her growth, while I froze in an apartment with broken heat. And when I trusted you, when I believed you, you emptied my account for her dream house. Silence rippled across the table. Even Rachel stopped breathing for a moment. Thomas slid another document forward. "We've prepared a settlement agreement. Restoration of Michelle's funds in full plus 5% interest compounded annually. This is generous considering we could pursue damages in court." Mom's pearls clicked nervously as she twisted her bracelet. Dad's face reddened. "You would sue your own parents." I met his eyes. "I would protect myself, just like you taught me to be responsible." Rachel shoved back her chair, voice sharp. "Of course. Perfect. Michelle gets her way again. I've already told everyone about the house, about the engagement, about the future I was supposed to have." "This isn't about your image, Rachel," I said quietly. "It's about respect, something I never got until I took it back." Thomas pushed a pen across the table. The silence stretched until Mom whispered something to Dad. He hesitated, then snatched the pen, scrawling his signature, with hands that trembled despite his defiance. Mom followed elegant cursive looping as if prettiness could erase betrayal. When the papers reached me, I signed last. My name curved across the page like a declaration. Michelle Robinson, no longer silent. Rachel stood abruptly, chair scraping against the hardwood. This is so typical. You'll die alone in that boring little life of yours, Michelle. At least I tried to live. I gathered the signed documents and tucked them into my folder. Enjoy your furniture shopping, Rachel. IKEA has great sales. Her face flushed crimson as she stormed out, door slamming behind her. Mom trailed after her, eyes full of disappointment that no longer pierced me. Dad lingered, gaze hard. I hope you're satisfied. I looked at him, the man I once baked pancakes for every Sunday morning, the man I tried to impress with perfect report cards. I'm not satisfied, I said, standing, but I'm finally free. He said nothing as he followed Mom and Rachel out. The door closed with a soft thud, and the room seemed lighter without them. Thomas gathered the documents into his briefcase, his voice steady. The bank will process the transfer tomorrow. Would you like the funds wired or a cashier's check? I exhaled slowly. A check. I want to hold it in my hands, to remind myself it was real. He nodded. Then tomorrow it will be. When I left the office, the autumn air felt different, crisp, sharp, alive. For 10 years, I had been the responsible one, the invisible one, the dependable one. Today I became something else, the woman who stood up and reclaimed what was hers. As I walked down the steps, the echo of my own words replayed in my head. It was never about money. It was about respect. And for the first time in my life, those words didn't feel like defiance. They felt like truth. The cashier's check lay heavy in my hands the next day, its inked numbers proof that my sacrifices had not vanished into Rachel's rooftop garden. $62, $865, the total of 10 years plus interest. I stared at it for a long time before sliding it into my bag, a talisman of both loss and reclamation. I didn't run to buy luxury. I didn't search for revenge. Instead, I called a realtor and asked to see a modest cottage I'd noticed on Maple Street. It wasn't flashy. 2 bedrooms peeling paint, a kitchen begging for renovation. But sunlight streamed through the east-facing windows, and in the backyard stood a towering oak branches, stretching like arms wide enough to hold a future. This one's quiet, the realtor said apologetically. Some people want more excitement. I've had enough excitement, I replied softly, running my hand along the worn windowsill. I could see myself here reading on a Sunday morning, drinking coffee while light filtered through lace curtains, inviting friends for dinners without performance or pearls. A home, not a stage. I signed the papers within the month. The first weeks were chaos scrubbing decades of dust painting walls until my arms ached, planting purple coneflowers along the stone path. Aunt Meredith came with gloves and a trowel, teaching me how to turn soil. Sarah brought wine and laughter, filling the empty rooms with a warmth my childhood house never held. We made mistakes, painted trim, the wrong color, broke a window pane, but every imperfection felt like ours. By spring, the cottage glowed pale yellow against the greening yard. Geraniums spilled from window boxes. The oak tree shaded a wooden bench I found at a thrift shop. Inside the mantel held photographs, not staged family portraits, but snapshots of my students' artwork. Sarah's grin, Aunt Meredith's hands in the dirt colleagues gathered around my dining table. A different kind of family, one I chose. One afternoon, as lilacs scented the air, movement stirred at the garden gate. My mother stood there, her posture tentative, both hands gripping her purse like a shield. For the first time in my life, she looked small. "Michelle," she said, voice unsteady, "your flowers are beautiful." Aunt Meredith, ever perceptive, excused herself. "My strawberry tarts need checking." She touched my shoulder as she passed, silent encouragement. I set down the watering can and brushed soil from my jeans. "Would you like to come in?" Mom hesitated, then stepped through the gate, pausing as if every inch required permission. I didn't bring anything. I should have. "It's fine," I said. Her eyes lingered on the cottage, the garden, the life I'd built without them. "I've been thinking about what we did. I told myself it was practical, that Rachel needed more help. But I see now what we took from you." Her voice cracked. "I see what I didn't see before. I swallowed the old ache rising. A year ago, I would have demanded a full confession restitution of every slight. But now, standing on my own soil, I realized her words, though imperfect, were more than I'd ever received. "I'm glad you see it now," I said simply. She nodded, blinking back tears. "Your father, he still thinks you abandoned us. He doesn't understand." "I didn't abandon anyone," I answered, meeting her eyes. "I just stopped abandoning myself." A robin splashed in the bird bath, scattering droplets into sunlight. We both watched it take flight. "Tea?" I asked. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was an opening. That evening, my dining table was crowded again, not with strained smiles, but with people who chose to be here. Aunt Meredith's tarts sat beside Sarah's salad. My colleague Jack told stories that had everyone laughing, and Thomas Wilson, of all people, raised a glass in a quiet toast to building the families we deserve. Later, when twilight deepened, I settled on the porch swing with my journal. Fireflies blinked above the garden, tiny lanterns stitching light into the dark. I wrote the words that had crystallized over months of struggle. The most valuable thing I gained wasn't money. It was knowing I matter too. I closed the journal, leaned back, and let the night air carry the truth. For the first time in my life, peace felt like home. Have you ever faced a moment when your family's betrayal forced you to stand up for yourself? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. And if Michelle's journey spoke to you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more powerful stories.